You know, it's a funny thing, memory. Sometimes it just tiptoes in quiet like while you're folding laundry or watching the robins hop in the yard. And other times, Lord have mercy, it crashes in like a summer thunderstorm, all rumble and ache and nowhere to hide. This morning I was sitting on the porch, had myself a cup of tea, little lemon wedge in it the way I like, and I caught the scent of lavender in the breeze. Just a whiff, real soft. And just like that, I was 19 again. Now I know what you're thinking. Come on, Grandma Ethel Lavender. But I'll tell you what, back in my day, that smell meant calm, comfort, a mother's touch, or at least the idea of one. I used to dry bundles of it under my pillow when I was pregnant. Thought it might help me sleep, maybe help the baby feel at peace in there. And today, out of nowhere, that smell came floating through the air like a ghost. And I swear, my heart ne'er stopped. See, there's a story I've kept to myself for many years, 59, to be exact. Folks think I'm just this old gal with too much time and a porch full of memories. But I got a secret tucked away deeper than any wrinkle on this face. A truth I didn't even know is mine till not too long ago. And honey, it's been eating at me lately like moths in the linen drawer. So I reckon, maybe it's time I told it. We'll go back to Opelousas, Louisiana. 1964. I was just a girl really, though I thought I was grown. Back then, if a girl got herself in trouble, well, people didn't ask questions. They whispered, they judged, and they made decisions for you without so much as looking you in the eye. That's just how we did it in those days. I was 7 months along, carrying a little life inside me, all because of a young soldier who vanished quicker than a cat in a rainstorm. Never wrote, never came back. Mama said I had brought shame into the house, and the next thing I knew, I was shipped off to my Auntie Jean's place out in the sticks. She was a midwife, a quiet woman, kept to herself. The plan was simple. I'd stay hidden, have the baby, and then, well, then it'd all just go away, like a fever or a bad dream. But it didn't, because I remember that night like it was last week. The storm outside, the pain, the crying. My baby girl, yes, she cried, weak but alive. I held her for just a second, maybe 2, and then Mama came. Said the baby didn't make it, told me to hush, that I'd get over it, that I should be thankful I had a second chance to start fresh. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. 'Cause if I didn't, if I thought for even a second that my baby had been taken from me on purpose, I don't know what I'd have done. But you know what? Secrets have long legs. They walk through generations. They find you even when you think you've outrun them. And not too long ago, one of those secrets came knocking on my door, not with a whisper, but with the full force of truth. And that, well, that's the story I want to tell you. Because some truths come late, but that doesn't mean they come empty. And before I leave this world, and I'm closer to the end than the beginning, believe me, I want you to know what really happened to my little girl. Her name is Margaret Ann, and I only just found her, back when the world was small and slow, before secrets and silence took root in my life. I was just little Ethel Marie Boudreau from Opelousas. That was our town, right in the heart of Louisiana. Just a dusty patch of earth with more churches than gas stations, where the folks knew your name, your business, and how much sugar your mama put in her sweet tea. We had long porches and slow Sundays, and folks waved at each other even if they didn't much like you. That was just the way things were back then. We lived in a white shotgun house with green shutters and a creaky screen door that never once latched right. There was a pecan tree out back and a rose bush my mama fussed over like it was her 4th child. Daddy worked down at the mill, and Mama kept the house in good shape, always busy, always moving, like stillness made her nervous. I had 2 older brothers who thought they ruled the earth, but mostly they just tracked mud through Mama's clean floors and chased each other with sticks. I was a quiet child, not shy, just observant. I'd sit on the porch with a book in my lap and my toes brushing the wood, listening to cicadas hum their afternoon songs. I believed in the goodness of people not because I'd seen much of it, but because I wanted to. I thought kindness was the strongest thing in the world. Stronger than anger. Stronger than money. I truly believed that if you loved someone hard enough, they'd always come back. Church was the center of everything. We were Catholic and strict about it. My mama had rosary beads in every drawer, and if you sneezed wrong on Sunday, she'd say a prayer for your soul. We didn't question. We obeyed. You didn't speak back, didn't raise your voice, and Lord knows you didn't talk about feelings. Especially not the kind that made you blush. But I dreamed all the same. I dreamed of being a teacher, maybe, or having a little house with yellow curtains, the kind that dance when the windows are open. I'd write my name, Ethel Marie, over and over on the corners of old paper, imagining how it might look on a mailbox one day. I wasn't looking to cause trouble, just wanted a life of my own, a quiet one, a good one. When I turned 16, something shifted. Boys started noticing. Mama started watching me closer. I'd walk to the store and hear whistles from cars, and though I pretended to roll my eyes, my cheeks turned red every time. It felt like magic and danger all wrapped in one. I remember once telling my friend Louise, "I think when you fall in love, your heart just knows." She laughed at me and said I was a fool. Maybe I was. Then came the summer I met him. Tall, lean, in uniform, just back from basic training. Name was Henry. He had hands that looked like they'd been through something, and eyes that made you want to tell him all your secrets. We only had a handful of afternoons together, stolen and sweet. He said I was gentle. Said I smelled like sugar and soap. I didn't know much about the world, but I knew how he made me feel, like I was seen for the first time. And then, just like that, he was gone. No letters. No goodbye. Just silence. But I carried more than memories after that. I carried life. A small flutter at first, then a full bloom of fear and hope mixed together. I didn't tell a soul, not right away. I still thought maybe he'd come back, that if you loved someone, they'd return. That's what I believed. That's who I was. A good girl in a world that didn't make room for mistakes. And looking back now, I can still see her, that younger version of me, standing on the edge of womanhood, barefoot on the back porch, holding lavender in her hand and whispering prayers into the wind. She had no idea what was coming. It was a Tuesday afternoon, sticky with heat and dragonflies, when I saw him for the first time. I was down at Thibodeau's general store, buying thread for Mama and maybe sneaking a look at the dime novels they kept by the counter, the kind with ladies in bonnets and gentlemen on horses. I wasn't looking for nothing special that day, just running errands like always. But then, Lord have mercy, I looked up and there he was, standing near the Coca-Cola cooler in uniform, sun hitting the dust on his boots just right. Henry Joseph Turner. That was his name. I didn't know it then, but I'd come to say it 1,000 times in my heart. He turned and looked right at me, not past me like most folks did, not through me like some ghost of a girl who should have kept her head down, but right at me. And I'll tell you what, my heart, it did a little skip like a needle on a record. I didn't even know why. I couldn't explain it, but something in me just knew. Not that he'd break my heart, not that he'd leave, just that he'd matter. That he'd be a chapter I'd never stop rereading. He smiled, slow and sure. Said, "Afternoon, miss." Just like that. Simple. Polite. But I could feel my knees go soft as overcooked okra. I mumbled something back. Lord knows what, and left with my thread and a head full of electricity. I must have walked home without touching the ground. And that night, when Mama asked if I got what she needed, I nodded, still floating. I didn't tell her about him. Not yet. Some things you keep close, like fire in your hands. Too precious to show too soon. Turns out he was in town on leave, back from basic, heading to Georgia next. His mama lived just outside Opelousas, and he was helping her paint the house while he was home. Said he wasn't much for sitting still. Said the military gave him order, but Louisiana gave him peace. We started running into each other more, by accident, as I claimed to my cousin, but truth is I learned his patterns like I learned the rhythm of Sunday hymns. We talk by the water tower, behind the church, near the bridge where folks carved initials into the wood. He told me about his dreams, said he wanted to open a garage one day, maybe have a couple boys to teach how to fix things right. He asked me what I wanted, and I told him, a porch, a lemon tree, a life where nobody was afraid to speak soft. He said, "You're different, Ethel. You see things." I don't know what he meant by that, but it made me feel seen. I remember one evening, the sky turned all purple and peach, the air smelled like warm dirt and honeysuckle. He reached over and touched my hand. Not like he owned it, just touched it, gentle as a prayer. And I swear, my whole body stilled. I didn't know how to name it then, but I knew it was something. Something that would stay with me long after the moment passed. And it did. We never had no big declarations, no promises written in ink. Just moments, small and golden. That was all. I didn't ask him to stay. I didn't dare. Back then, girls like me didn't ask for much. We were taught to be grateful for whatever scraps of affection the world tossed our way. I just watched him walk away that last time, boots dusty, bag over his shoulder, and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I waited for a letter. Just one. Every day I checked the box, heart thudding like a rabbit in a trap. Weeks turned to months. And then, silence. But by then, I already knew. Something had started inside me. A flutter. A life. I put my hand on my belly one night, alone in my room, and I whispered, "You're not just mine. You're ours." That's when everything changed. By the time I was 6 months along, there wasn't any hiding left to do. My dresses stopped buttoning right, and Mama started looking at me like I was a stranger sitting at her table. She never raised her voice. That wasn't her way, but oh, her silence could slice you clean in two. Every clink of the supper spoon, every sigh too long, every look that didn't meet my eyes, it all screamed louder than words ever could. Daddy? He barely said a thing. Came home from the mill, washed up, ate in quiet, and left the room when I walked in. Not mean, just absent. Like he didn't know how to hold the truth of me in his hands, so he dropped it altogether. I guess in some way, he mourned me while I was still right there, breathing under his roof. But it was Mama who made the decision. She said it one morning after church, real crisp and clean, while folding linens on the porch. "You'll go stay with Aunt Jean, out in the country. She'll take care of it. And when it's done, you'll come back and we won't speak of it again." Like I'd caught a fever or ruined a dress. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her how she could look at me, her own daughter, and see not a girl in need of kindness, but a problem to be solved. But I didn't. I just nodded, because what else could I do? I had no money, no voice, no say. Back then, good girls didn't talk back. And bad girls? Well, we were lucky just to be hidden, not thrown out entirely. So they packed me a small case, a few dresses, some underthings, my rosary, and set me off down the road in Uncle Ray's pickup. No goodbye, no prayer, just the slam of the screen door behind me. Aunt Jean's place was small, quiet, out past where the gravel turned to dirt. She wasn't cruel, but she wasn't tender either. She treated me like a task on her list: feed, rest, prepare. She had midwifed half the babies in the parish, and I reckon she knew better than anyone what silence did to a girl. Still, she didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. Nights were the worst. That's when the fear crept in. I'd lie in the little bed, hands on my belly, listening to the frogs and cicadas through the open window, and wonder what my baby would look like. Would she have his eyes? My hair? Would she know I loved her, even if I couldn't keep her? And then the guilt would come like a wave, because I didn't even know if I had the right to love her. Not the way I'd failed to protect her already. I started talking to the baby in whispers, called her Little Bean, told her about flowers and clouds and the smell of cornbread in Mama's kitchen. I wanted her to know something sweet, even if just from my voice. And deep inside, a small flicker of hope tried to hold on. Maybe, just maybe, if I did everything right, if I bore the shame quietly, if I said my prayers and kept my head down, maybe they'd let me keep her. But that hope, I see now, was never mine to hold. I was a girl in a world that wasn't built for my mistakes, and my mistake had a heartbeat. I didn't know then the depth of what they'd already decided. That this baby, my baby, was never meant to be mine in their eyes. That plans were being made without me. That silence, once again, would be their weapon of choice. And so there I was, alone but not, carrying life inside me, while everyone around me acted like it was something to be erased. I remember one night sitting out back, holding a piece of lavender Aunt Jean had drying on the line. I crushed it in my fingers, smelled it, and cried. Not loud, just enough. And I whispered, "Please don't forget me, little one, even if they take you. Please remember I tried." I remember the moment the clock stopped, not on the wall, but in me. I don't know if it was 3 a.m. or closer to dawn, but the world had gone real still, like the night itself was holding its breath. The contractions had started the evening before, sharp, hot little knives that came and went like waves on a bad sea. Aunt Jean stayed close, quiet but firm, guiding me through every breath, every push, her hands steady as stone. I was scared. Lord knows I was scared. 17 hours of pain and sweat and prayers said through gritted teeth. But I held on. For her. For my little Bean. When she finally came, it was storming outside. Rain pounding the tin roof, wind scratching at the shutters like some desperate ghost. But inside that dim little room, I only heard one thing, her cry. Weak, high-pitched, but real. Alive. My baby was alive. She was small, too small, but she moved. She cried. And when they placed her in my arms, wrapped in a clean flour sack, I saw her eyes open, dark as molasses, and I thought, there you are, my girl. I remember whispering, "Mama's here, baby. Mama's right here." And I swear, in that one moment, the world made sense again. For the first time in months, the shame, the fear, the silence, all of it faded. There was only her. But it didn't last. Not an hour later, I'd heard the gravel crackling outside, a car pulling in. Mama. I felt it before I saw her. Her presence hit the room like a gust of cold wind. She didn't knock. Just walked in, took one look at the baby in my arms, and her mouth set in that hard line I knew too well. She didn't come to hold her. Didn't come to comfort me. She came to end it. She didn't make it, she said flatly, already reaching for a blanket. My arms tightened, my whole body stiffened. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice already trembling. "She's right here. She's breathing." Mama didn't blink. "You're confused. That baby won't survive the night. It's better this way." I looked to Aunt Jean, begged her with my eyes. But she just lowered her head, folding a towel, not saying a word. I was screaming inside. Everything in me knew this wasn't right, that something terrible was happening. But I'd just given birth. I was weak, bleeding, dizzy. I felt like I was floating, slipping out of my body. I tried to speak again, but Mama's voice cut through like a knife. "We'll handle it. You rest now." Then it all went dark. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't remember letting go. But when I woke, she was gone. My arms were empty. The room was quiet. The storm had passed, but the silence roared louder than thunder ever could. I looked around, wild, desperate, and Mama was gone too. She didn't make it, Aunt Jean said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. No funeral. No grave. No explanation. Just gone. That day I lost more than a child. I lost trust. I lost the part of me that believed family meant safety. That love was louder than shame. I sat in that bed for hours, clutching the corner of the blanket where her little head had rested, and cried without making a sound. I felt hollowed out, like my body had betrayed me, not just by giving life, but by not being strong enough to protect it. I hated myself. I hated them, but mostly I hated how easily they erased her, like she was a problem to be swept away, a mistake never to be named. And so I did what they wanted. I came back home, quiet, no questions, no tears in public, just folded myself into the version of me they approved of. But I was never the same. That lie didn't just take her. It took me too. After that night, time didn't move forward so much as it just continued, like a train rolling on broken tracks. Nowhere in particular, no whistle to warn you when the next bend might snap you clean in half. I came home from Aunt Jean's 2 weeks later. There was no welcome, no warm pot of gumbo on the stove. Mama just set my suitcase down in my old room like I'd been away at Bible camp, and Daddy gave me a tired nod from the porch without looking me in the eye. That was that. We didn't speak about what happened. We didn't speak much at all. I was 17 but felt 100. The girl who used to press flowers and books and dream of yellow curtain kitchens, she was gone. What was left was someone smaller, quieter, and always cold, even in July. I remember going back to school. The way girls looked at me, not mean, just curious, pitying, like they'd heard something they weren't supposed to know but couldn't forget. I kept my head down. I stopped singing in church. I stopped writing in my little journal. I stopped hoping for letters from Henry. That door, too, had slammed shut. At night, I would lie in bed and stare at the ceiling fan spinning slow. My body still ached in ways I didn't understand. My heart, well, it wasn't even aching anymore. It was numb, a dull throb under my ribs. Like something had been taken, but the wound wasn't worth tending. Just cover it. Move on. That's what they all did. But I didn't forget her. I couldn't. There was this one thing I'd kept, a little collar I'd stitched by hand during those early days at Aunt Jean's, before the pain came. I don't even know why I made it. Just something to keep my hands busy while my heart twisted itself in knots. Pale pink cotton, tiny white thread flowers, imperfect, but made with such care. I had planned to use it on a little dress, dreamed of how she'd look wearing it on Easter Sunday. After I came home, I wrapped it in brown paper and tucked it into a small box. Then one night, when the house was asleep, I lifted up the floorboard under my bed and slid it beneath. No one knew it was there. Not Mama, not Daddy, not even God. I sometimes thought. It was my secret, my truth in a house built on silence. Years passed like fog, thick, slow, and full of things I never said out loud. I tried to build a life. I worked as a receptionist for a dentist in town, smiled at folks I didn't trust, dated a man I didn't love. I broke that off before it went too far. I couldn't bring myself to pretend. I'd had enough pretending to last a lifetime. My faith? Lord, that's a hard thing to speak on. I still went to church, sat in the third pew on the left, bowed my head when they told us to, but I stopped praying. I couldn't bring myself to, not after what they did, what she did. I couldn't talk to a God who stood quiet while a baby was taken from her mama's arms and sold off like a secret to be buried. But I kept the color. Every so often, I'd pull it up from under the floor and just hold it. Let it rest in my lap like something holy. I didn't cry much in those days. The tears had dried up like riverbeds in a drought, but every once in a while, one would sneak through. Not for what I lost, but for the fact that I never got to say goodbye. That's what silence does. It doesn't just cover the truth, it rots it. It makes you doubt your own memory, your own goodness. And for decades, that's what I lived with. Not grief, not rage, just quiet. Until the day a girl named Julie handed me a folded-up printout and said, "Gran E, I think we found someone." But that's another story. Hope don't always come loud. Sometimes it shows up like a whisper at the edge of the porch, gentle as the morning mist, and you almost miss it, almost send it away, thinking you imagined it. That's how it was for me. 53 years had passed since that night. Half a century of silence, of pretending to forget. And then one Tuesday afternoon, sitting in the common room of this home, playing checkers with a lady who cheats when she thinks I'm not looking, my granddaughter Julie walks in holding a piece of paper like it's the answer to every prayer I'd stopped saying. She said, "Gran E, you might want to sit down." I told her I was already sitting, bless her heart, but the way her hands trembled, I knew something was coming. She passed me that paper, printed from some website, all numbers and names and little colored boxes. At first, it looked like nonsense to me. DNA results, matches, all science talk. But then I saw it. A name, Margaret Ann Brooks. 50% genetic match. Born in 1964. Lives in Georgia. And under relationship, it said one word, daughter. My hands, Lord have mercy. They started shaking before I could even blink. I pressed my fingers down on my knees, trying to keep steady, trying not to lose myself right there in front of everyone. "Julie," I said, my voice not even mine. "What is this?" She looked at me, those sweet brown eyes swimming with something between joy and fear, and whispered, "I think she's your baby, Grand E. I think she's alive." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Alive? I sat there like stone, memories rushing in like floodwater after a levee breaks. That night, that lie, that tiny pink color, the box still under the floor of my old bedroom, and all I could think was, they lied to me. They took her, and she's out there. I didn't cry. Not yet. Tears felt too small for what was happening inside me. Julie reached for my hand and said, "She doesn't know who her mother is. She was told her mama died giving birth." My heart split clean down the middle. That poor girl had lived a whole life thinking she was born from death, while I lived mine thinking I'd lost her to it. We didn't call her right away. I needed time. Time to let it settle, to feel all the feelings I'd buried like old bones. Fear, guilt, wonder, it all came back. But underneath it, there was something new, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And that hope didn't roar. It didn't sing. It whispered, "What if she wants to know you?" That night, I sat by my window with a cup of tea, looking out at the oak trees, and I thought about all the things I never got to do, all the birthdays I missed, the scrapneys I didn't kiss, the lullabies I never sang. And I whispered, "Lord, if this is real, give me the courage not to run from it." A week later, I wrote the letter. My hands were clumsy, but the words came gentle. I told her I was Ethel Marie Boudreau, that I had loved a baby once who was taken from me, that I'd lived every day since with a space inside me shaped just like her, and that if she ever wanted to talk, not even meet, just talk, I'd be here. We mailed it, and then we waited. I didn't know what she'd say. Maybe nothing. Maybe too much. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something stir in me, something light. Like maybe the part of me that went quiet all those years ago was waking up. And I thought, maybe it's not too late to be her mama. I stood at the mirror that morning longer than usual. The light in my room, soft, golden, the kind that shows every crease and freckle, felt almost holy. I pulled the lavender envelope from my nightstand drawer, the one I'd saved for something that mattered. It had been sitting there for years, waiting, like it knew someday I'd need to use it for something sacred. Inside it, I placed the little pink collar. That same collar I'd stitched all those years ago, back when I was just a scared girl whispering lullabies into a belly full of hope. That collar had survived things I hadn't. It held pieces of me I thought were long gone, kindness, tenderness, the softness I'd buried under years of silence. I folded a note to go with it. Simple, just a few lines. Margaret N. I made this for you before I ever saw your face. I didn't get to give it to you then, but I'm giving it to you now. Love, Mama. I sealed the envelope with hands that didn't shake, because the truth is, by then, I had already made the choice, not to beg for forgiveness, not to explain away the years, just to be real, to show up, to let her see me, not the version others had sculpted, not the bad girl Mama tried to hide, not the quiet lady at church who never spoke too much, but me, all of me. When we met in that little cafe in Montgomery, I knew her before she said a word. She walked in with her chin high, eyes wide, and tears already spilling. I stood slowly, unsure whether to run or fall to my knees, but she came to me and she took my hand. We didn't talk right away. We just stood there in the middle of that diner like the world had cracked open and poured us into each other's arms. I don't remember who cried first. Doesn't matter. We cried together. And in that moment, in that one long, shaking embrace, I forgave everyone. My mama, Aunt Jean, even myself. Because holding her meant it didn't matter how we were broken. We were here. Together. That was enough. Later that night, after we said goodbye and promised we'd talk again soon, I came home, made myself a cup of tea, and sat on the porch under the stars. I thought about how long I'd carried the weight of a story I wasn't allowed to tell. How many times I'd questioned my worth, my womanhood, my place in the world. And I realized something. I wasn't just a victim. I wasn't just someone things happened to. I was a mother. I am a mother. And I chose to show up, finally, not perfect, but present. That was enough. So I took the old box from under my floor, the one that held the collar all these years, and for the first time, I let it go. I didn't throw it away in anger. I didn't burn it in some grand gesture. I simply walked to the water behind this home and let it float. The ribbon, the paper, the past. And I whispered, I choose to live. Not in what was lost, but in what's still here. No more shame. No more questions I'll never get answered. Just this life, in all its sweetness and sorrow, and a daughter who calls me Mama now. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. It's funny, isn't it? The way life circles back around, not always in the way you thought, but in the way you needed. Some folks spend their whole lives looking for meaning in the big things, weddings, jobs, money, applause. But for me, meaning came in a voice on the phone saying, "Hi, Mama," or in a little boy, no taller than my kitchen counter, running up to me with arms wide yelling Gran E, like I was Christmas and ice cream rolled into one. I used to think life was something you survived, that if you just kept quiet long enough, did what was expected, maybe it'd hurt a little less. That was the lesson I was taught, not with words, but with looks and rules and the silence that settled in every room I ever walked into. Keep your chin down. Don't ask questions. don't feel too much. But let me tell you that silence, it ain't mercy. It's prison. What I know now is this. The truth don't set you free all at once. It don't burst in with trumpets and light. It trickles in, soft and slow, until one day you realize you can breathe again. Not just survive, but live. And there's a world of difference between the two. There's an old photo of me, sitting on the porch when I was maybe 20, holding a cup of coffee and staring into the distance. I look calm, but I remember that girl, what she was carrying. She thought her story ended at 17, when they told her the baby had died. She thought she'd never be whole again, never be seen again, never be known. But now I look at that photo and whisper to her, "You were wrong, sweetheart. Your story was just getting started." See, the thing I want you to know, whether you're 25 or 84 like me, is that it's never too late for the truth to matter. It's never too late to show up for your own life. You can spend years waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to feel, to speak, to want. Or you can decide for yourself. I lost a lot of years waiting for an apology that never came, waiting for a knock on the door or a letter in the mail, waiting to stop hurting. But pain doesn't ask for your permission, and neither does healing. Both come in waves. But at some point, you gotta stand in the tide and say, "All right, I'm here. Let's begin." I didn't get the life I dreamed of, not the yellow curtains, not the porch swing with him beside me, but I got something better in a way. I got to love a daughter twice, once in silence and now in the light. I got grandbabies who think my stories are the best part of Sunday. And I got a name again, not Ethel, not Miss Boudreau, but Granny. That name was born out of love, not shame. It's mine, and it's hers, and it's theirs. And maybe that's what I want you to hear most of all. You can be broken. You can be wronged. You can be lied to, pushed aside, forgotten. But that don't mean your story stops there. That don't mean you disappear. So maybe, just maybe, it's time you opened the box under your bed. Maybe it's time you made that call, sent that letter, forgave that person, even if it's yourself. 'Cause let me tell you, the longer you wait, the heavier it gets. And Lord knows, you don't have to carry it all the way to the end. Sometimes, late at night, when the world has gone quiet and my bones ache the way old wood does before a storm, I catch the scent of lavender again. Not strong, just faint, like memory itself, drifting in from somewhere just beyond the window. And when I do, I close my eyes, lean my head back, and breathe it in like a prayer. That smell used to mean sorrow for me. It used to bring back the girl I was scared, hidden, unheard. But now, it means something else. It means peace. It means survival. It means I made it. You know, I started telling this story thinking it was just for me, a way to finally let it out before the good Lord calls me home. But now that we've sat here together, you and me, I realize, maybe it wasn't mine alone. Maybe it belongs to all of us who've carried quiet wounds, to those who waited for answers that never came, or who buried truth just to keep on breathing. I don't have all the answers. Never did. Still don't. But I do know this love, real love, the kind that digs its roots deep into your soul, it never really dies. It gets buried maybe, forgotten for a time, covered in dust and silence. But it waits, and sometimes, just sometimes, it finds its way back to the light, Margaret, and calls me almost every morning now. We don't talk about the lost years much, sometimes we do, when the space feels safe enough, but mostly we talk about the now. Her boys, her garden, her migraines, bless her heart. We laugh, we cry, we live, and every now and then, she'll say, "Mama, I wish I'd had you growing up." And I tell her, "You have me now, baby, and I'm not going anywhere." You see, this story, it ain't just about pain. It's about second chances, and third ones too. It's about the courage to open a door you thought was locked forever. About reaching your hand into the dark and trusting that someone might be reaching back. And maybe it's also about you. Yes, you. The one sitting there with your heart a little tight, thinking about your own box under the bed, the words you never said, the person you never forgave, the memory you've wrapped in silence so many times it started to feel like part of who you are. Well, it doesn't have to be. You still have time. Time to speak, to reach out, to let go, to begin. You're not too old or too far gone. Your story's not over just because someone else told you it should be. So let me ask you something, and I hope you let the question stay with you a while. What truth are you still waiting to tell? Or better yet, who are you still hoping will knock on your door? Because sometimes all it takes is a single letter, a single step, to turn a wound into a window. I'll leave you with this, a thought I come back to often. Maybe love doesn't always come back the way we want it to. Maybe it doesn't come riding in like a hero, fixing everything. Maybe it just sits beside us quietly one morning, takes our hand, and says, "I'm still here." And sometimes I wonder if that young soldier remembers. If somewhere, wherever he ended up, he thinks of me, of her, of the soft July nights and the girl with lavender in her hair. I like to believe he does. And you? Do you believe the ones who truly love us find their way back? Because maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop waiting and start remembering.